grab your favorite beverage. It's time for Porch Therapy with Edward Dino and Keith Villery. Okay, Edward, we are back, and this is Porch Therapy. How you doing, Edward?
I'm doing great, Keith. How about yourself?
That's good. You know, it's a little hot down here in Louisiana, but it's
really. First hurricane? First tropical storm since we've been on.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I just want to give our listeners a little bit about my background. I was mayor. I was elected mayor in 1991 and was mayor through the whole 90s. I did 2 terms, and they passed term limits. So I had my 3rd term, and then I was limited. My wife voted for term limits. And just to give you an idea, at that time on the national level, that's when Newt Gingrich was doing his craziness. Mm-hmm. And that's when it really polarized Democrats and Republicans. So I was actually glad to be out because the politics, even at a local level, was kind of getting a little testy. And it's been a long time. So how about yourself?
Well, I was elected to the legislature in, I think, 83, and I served for 3 terms. I left in 96. And it's something I'm really glad. I enjoyed doing it. But if I would have stayed in it, if I'd have stayed in another term, I'd have probably been broke. I mean, it really, the problem with it, I'm sure it's the same with mayor, is that there's no limit of what you can do. I mean, there's no limit. There are certainly limits, but you can continue to just do more and more and more. So if you like what you're doing and if you're good at it, it's all you're going to do. So it certainly impacted my law practice. So I had to get out.
I know exactly what you mean. Even after 12 years, you know, I'm a landscape architect, so I put my career on hold.
That's right.
For 12 years, I got out, and that's when all the transparency was. What have you done? Well, I haven't had any projects for 12 years because I've been, as mayor, I was not supposed to have anything. So it was probably not a real good business decision for me to do.
No, it was. And, you know, like you said, the term limits and Newt Gingrich and, of course, the contract with America, the only part of the contract they didn't adopt was term limits in Congress, even though I'm sure every congressman has voted for it. But, of course, it's, I'll vote for it this time, let me not vote for it, and then you vote, you know. Yeah. It hadn't gone through Congress. Now, every little pionky board has term limits. People that have absolutely no impact on anyone's life, I'll believe they have to have term limits, which I think is a pretty bad idea.
Yeah, I'm not for term limits. I mean, the president I can see because of the billions of dollars that's being spent on campaigns. But at a local level, it doesn't, I don't think it really helps.
Even on the presidential level, I mean, you had George Bush Sr., he didn't get reelected. Jimmy Carter didn't get reelected. Biden didn't get reelected. I mean,
Trump didn't get reelected.
Trump didn't get reelected.
Until,
well, that depends who you speak with. Yeah. I mean, he may be, and he's violating term limits now in his third term. So, I don't know. But you're right, Keith. It's a different world from when we talked, about 2 weeks ago. I mean, 10 days ago. It's a whole different world.
Everything moves fast. I mean, just to get, with these podcasts, we try to keep them current. So we need to at least touch on the bombing, and the bombing and the fact that, in March, his director of national intelligence said, they're not making a bomb. The supreme leader hasn't authorized it. It's not going. And then fast forward to a couple of days ago, and he had a feeling. He bombed Iran on a feeling.
Feelings.
On feelings. And so, it's like, is he shredding the Constitution again? And I do think he is. But there's no consequences.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say this. Before President Trump became our beautiful wartime president, and we don't know, he says that he doesn't believe our Homeland Security secretary, who he might be right. And I mean, everyone else thought she was incompetent. He may be right about her not knowing what she's talking about.
Very true.
But, we don't know where he is getting this from. And at least under Ronald Reagan, we knew that Nancy was consulting with psychics. We don't even know. Yeah, they had legitimate, I'm sure, licensed in California psychics.
There was a psychic of Sausalito that I think my wife went to.
Well, there you go. We don't know where this guy's getting it. We don't. If we just knew he was getting something as legitimate as Ronald Reagan was getting.
All I hear is feelings.
That's all you can get. But I think that, like I said, it's a whole different world. When we talked last, he was still in bed with Elon Musk.
Oh, I know.
I mean, that's all busted up.
We haven't heard of Elon in a few weeks, but the big, what's that guy's name? The Big Balls.
Big Balls is gone.
He's gone. He resigned. There's something happening there. But we may never know.
Yeah, I think that President Trump, of course, his proclamation that these people that have been hating each other and have sworn to destroy each other for hundreds of years will never fire another shot at each other.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I thought that was insightful.
Yeah.
I thought that was someone that really has a accurate world viewpoint and educated. Very
well, it's unfortunate that whole Middle East hates Israel and wants to get rid of it.
Right.
I mean, it's really unfortunate, but Israel hasn't really. I mean, especially what's happening in Gaza right now. I mean, it is genocide. I mean, they're really doing some pretty extreme things to get rid of Hamas. And are they going to get rid of Hamas?
Well, they're going to have to if it's going to be a gated community the way the president envisions.
Absolutely.
I mean, if it's going to be a profitable real estate deal,
yeah, they got to move them out.
They got to get them out.
Yeah,
I mean,
move them to Egypt or
somewhere. But I mean, how are you going to have the beautiful seaside community if they're still there?
Yeah,
you
got to get rid of them.
There's so many challenges confronting our president. I think
they really are.
And that's not even to mention Greenland. I mean, we're not even talking about.
It's been a little off the radar.
Yeah, we could get off into the weeds, and thank God we're going to do more of these so that we can talk about the president's international ambitions with the Panama Canal and Greenland and other things.
But we talked last time about the big, bad, beautiful bill, and it's heating up in the Senate. I mean, there's a lot of things going on, and it's interesting that Trump said if he doesn't have it on his desk July 4th, nobody goes on vacation.
That's leadership.
That is leadership.
I mean, he's really
putting that red line.
He's drawing that red line
in the sand. And I'm not sure that they're going to be able to do that based upon what I've recently read about the Parliamentarian. Can you explain a little bit about whole reconciliation in this whole?
Well, it's Senator Byrd Robert Byrd from West Virginia was a legendary president of the Senate. Was president of the Senate for years. Actually played the fiddle too, and he came up with a measure that said that if there's any substantive bill that's passed, it needs 60 votes in the Senate, and that has been interpreted to include the budget, that the budget can't have changes of law, substantive law in it, or else it'll require 60 votes to pass, which they'll never get 60 votes.
Right.
So they have, is her name McDonald, the parliamentarian, first woman parliamentarian for the Senate ever.
Elizabeth McDonough.
Yeah. And she took a stick to the Democrats too. When they with President Biden's legislation, and now that's happening today. And let me mention this to you because I think it's important. The condition and the status of our country is really dependent on ethical Republicans. You know, Liz Cheney, Pence, Adam Kinzinger. Those are the people that, even to an extent, Cassidy. Those are the people that we're depending on to be sure the place just doesn't go to hell. And so far, the president of the Senate, Senator Thune from one of the Dakotas, has said he could, with a majority vote, change that law.
Right.
And he said he's not going to do it. He's going to respect it. So, I mean, I think that we have to kind of respect ethics wherever we find it, in the most unbelievably...
Yeah, so reconciliation is a budgetary bill. It comes out of the House, because House is where the budget starts. It comes out of the House, it goes to the Senate, but the Senate has a parliamentarian who looks at the bill and says, this is not necessarily budgetary, this is policy related.
Yeah.
And so she has taken... she's taken a red pen to start. I see like 16 different things that she's done, removed provisions from the bill. And here, there's a lot of them. There's just a lot of them. She threw out most of the measures that would have defunded or dismantled the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Office of Financial Research, and the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board. So, you know, I mean, those are things that are policy related. They're not budgetary.
No, they were created by Congress.
Yeah. She stopped the repeal of emission standards for passenger vehicles. They were going to take those emission standards off of passenger vehicles as part of a budgetary bill.
Yeah.
She has the pay-to-play measure whereby developers of infrastructure projects could avoid judicial review if they paid a fee.
Right.
I mean, come on.
They would be presumed compliant with environmental regulations.
They could pay to break the law, to break environmental regulations.
That's cutting edge in government these days.
Or pay-to-play.
Yeah. Yeah.
You remember the mayor of New York. She stopped two bizarre home state gifts that were snuck in by Ted Cruz, one of which would have robbed a space shuttle from the Smithsonian and ferreted it to Houston on the taxpayer's dime. So she's getting into the weeds in this bill. And poor Ted.
Poor Ted.
Limitations on grant funding for sanctuary cities. That's out.
Good.
Granting state and local officials authority to arrest undocumented immigrants for being undocumented. That's out.
Yeah.
Forcing litigants suing the federal government to post a giant bond. You talked about this last week.
Yeah.
To win a preliminary injunction or temporary restraining order. That's out.
Yeah, thank God.
Which it should be. Giving federal employees the choice of retaining hard-won worker rights or receiving more of their paycheck and charging them a fee for filing grievances. Those things are out, according to the
charging a fee to file a grievance. Can you imagine that?
Unbelievable. I mean, it's really where they come up with these ideas. Charging unions a fee for use of agency resources. That's out. A slush fund for the executive branch could use to unilaterally reorganize its own agencies. I mean, that's out. A bonkers provision to require the U.S. Postal Service to sell all the electrical vehicles it just bought. And dig up all parking lots with installed charging infrastructure so the chargers can be thrown out. That seems like waste. Maybe fraud and abuse.
Yeah, well, he didn't do it until Elon was gone.
Yeah, you're right. And surprisingly, the 10-year ban on all state AI regulation.
That's incredible.
As a condition of receiving federal broadband funding, a top big tech priority, was allowed to stay in the bill. though several Republicans have demanded that it be pulled out, so its fate is not yet known. I think that's one that Marjorie Taylor wants out. She said she wouldn't have voted for it if she knew that was in the bill. When those 2 pages she didn't read.
She does have a problem with intelligence. We do know that. Well, you know, the Congress has failed to regulate AI. They won't do it. And so this bill seeks to ban the states for 10 years from letting states. This is supposedly, conservatives are supposedly states' rights.
Yeah.
And this law would ban the states from being able to in any way regulate AI.
But it sounds like it's going to be left in the bill.
Oh, it's going to be left in the bill.
The 10-year ban.
But it may politically be pulled out.
Right.
But who's for it? Do we know who?
I think Marjorie is for allowing the states to regulate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who you can't help but wonder who is for this, you know?
Yeah, somebody is telling somebody to be for it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean that's 15 items that the parliamentarian and there are more. There's more things that they're doing, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. You know, then that doesn't even get to the provision that's of the Medicaid and the mountain of other provisions that could be tagged by her.
You know, I wanted to address some of the things that I said at our last podcast. Well, and one is that I want to correct myself, and I had mentioned that in the bill it was a provision that discouraged contributions to savings accounts for disabled people, and that's not true. And I want to take that back. That's not the case. And I've gotten a couple of calls from people.
Oh, good.
I got a call from a prominent business leader in the community, and she had said that she wished that we could explain how giving removing a tax cut or charging a fee is putting money into billionaires' pockets. And so that we could explain that. And the best way to explain that, and that touches on something else that I think is important, but the way we explain that is that, you know, there has to be a gesture to balancing the budget or to some sort of fiscal responsibility. You can't just give these tax breaks and not make an effort to recoup some of that money back for the government. So in the effort, I mean, the focus, let's just be really clear. The focus of this bill is not necessarily any policy thing or any kind of helping someone who may peripherally benefit in this bill. The main thrust of this bill is to continue $3.5 billion of tax breaks, which go to primarily wealthy people. Yeah. So in order to get that through, you have to create some new taxes, some new fees, and you have to cut benefits to other people. Yeah. So in order to achieve this amazing tax cut for wealthy people, you have to do this. You have to cut benefits to other people, and you have to charge fees to other people. And so it can honestly be said that when you do that, those funds are going into the pockets of billionaires. Yeah. And I know that when I was, there's a sense that, well, you know, it's not like they're getting any money. It's not like the billionaires are getting any money, or that anybody that gets a tax cut is getting any money, because that's our money. Yeah. And that's just not true. It's like if I wrote your will and you were paying me a fee and you said, now look, you spend that right because that's my money. You know, I mean, the truth is it's not your money anymore, and you're getting something for it. You're getting a highway. You're getting a bond. Exactly. You're getting a wall in Mexico that an 85-year-old woman can climb over. Yeah. So,
well, the Freedom Caucus demanded a one-to-one relationship between spending cuts and tax cuts.
Mm-hmm.
And, what Trump said today was that in 2 months, the tariffs have brought in $88 billion.
Yeah.
Well, they have brought in $88 billion, but that's in the year. And part of that year was under Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like that, either he's just ignorant or he's intentionally misleading people. But 88 billion was correct, but it was a whole year. So part of what he's saying is he's going to generate more money through taxes, and the economy is going to get better, and that's going to pay for this $3.7 trillion increase in the deficit over 10 years. And 3.7 is a low estimate.
Yeah.
That it's probably going to be 4 or more trillion.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you speaking about tariffs, well, first I want to wrap up talking about going into the pockets of billionaires.
Yeah.
Because I got another call. I got another call out of Lafayette.
Keep those calls coming.
Out of Lafayette that said that Louisiana has 3 billionaires. It doesn't have 2 billionaires.
We stand corrected.
Yeah, and the other billionaire lives in New Orleans. He's a man by the name of Goldring, and he owns several, a lot of alcohol beverage, many, dozens of brands of alcohol beverages. And it made me think, I remember Louisiana, and when the richest people were in banking or shipping or finance, manufacturing, oil and petrochemical. And today our billionaires are football, chicken, fried chicken, and liquor. I mean, that's where our billionaires
are. It is Louisiana.
Yeah, and I think that, we have 3, at least we know we have 3 people that are benefiting from the tax bill. So.
Yeah, and the Medicaid cut problem is a real threat to rural hospitals.
Oh my God!
And that's something that actually our own Senator Cassidy is jumping in there to try to understand how to solve that problem. And I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do it or not. But they're going to make Medicaid people work more. I think there's 60 some odd percent already work, and some people just can't work. They're disabled, or they're old, or they're in a rest home. Edward, the Senate Republicans could simply ignore the parliamentarian, and they've ignored a lot of other things. They've ignored a lot of the laws with regard to ICE and the president bombing Iran with no intelligence, nothing imminent.
Authority from Congress.
And they can keep whatever they want if they want to go that route. Of course, they all got to get elected sometime, and there are a lot of them coming up, including the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, who is, I think he's up for election in 2026. So he is vowed to heed the parliamentarian rulings. So that at least has a little bit of a core integrity that he has. And hopefully, they'll weed all this stuff out, and then they'll send it back to the House, and the House is going to have issues.
You touched on something that I think hasn't been mentioned a lot, and that is the rural hospitals and how that's financed is with a provider's tax. And right now, states levy taxes on medical services, which is paid, the tax is paid by the federal government, and that money goes to the states to pay their share of Medicaid expenses. And right now, that's up to 6%, and the Senate wants to cut that to 3.5%.
Yeah.
So that will really blow a hole in the state budgets. And I've heard an analysis that in Louisiana, if this bill passes, it's going to have a $4 billion impact on the state fisc, on our budget, not economy,
but on the financial ability of budgets of Louisiana.
Yeah,
$4 billion.
I don't think any of these states know what's happening, and Louisiana in particular, they're all in favor of it, and we have a large percentage of population that is on Medicaid.
Yeah.
And in these rural hospitals, we have a lot of rural hospitals. I mean, we live in an area that is not really rural anymore. In fact, we're considered urbanized in the southern part of St. Tammany, but you go just a couple of miles, and you're rural.
You are rural, and the economic impact to our economy of the loss of $4 billion in funding. You know, you put the multiplier. You're talking about a $30 billion impact to the state of Louisiana.
Yeah.
You're talking about a lot of jobs in rural hospitals and suppliers and all that type of thing. And one of the things that it's amazing to me how there's not a big view of things. If we're trying to attract businesses to Louisiana, who's going to come here if you can't get good, decent health care?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like quality of life is number one when someone decides where they're going to move a business here.
And a workforce that has health care.
That's right. That's exactly right.
We don't have that many high-paying jobs, but it's kind of like the Walmart people all take care of. They're all on Medicaid. Not all, but a lot of them are on Medicaid.
I'm ambivalent about the work requirement part. Because the bill says you need 20 hours a week of either work, school, or volunteer work in the community. And to me, that I'm not philosophically opposed to that.
Yeah.
My problem is that if it's administered by an incompetent, uncaring administration, like we've seen in the whole Doge thing, if we had people like out of Doge administering who's getting Medicaid, that's really scary.
That is scary.
And
they could turn it off at any minute.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole callous incompetence combination has been devastating, I think.
Louisiana was one of those states that actually took the supplemental Medicaid.
Right.
And, those workers who were making money but not enough to be able to qualify even for, I guess, Obamacare, they were able to tap into the Medicaid system.
Right.
Which helped a lot of people. And, we're going to get rid of a lot of that. It's a frightening thing for poor people.
One of the things that I looked in the bill that I think is intriguing that that I'm curious about, and it could be a really good idea, are these what they call the Trump trusts. But what it is every child that's born between 2024 and 29, the federal government puts $1,000 in an account for them that's invested.
Yeah.
And relatives can put money into it. And it's like a trust that has been established for them so that when they're 18, no telling how big. Now, of course, what could go wrong with Trump investing your money? I mean, if it's all in cryptocurrency.
It might be in crypto.
It may be a great idea, but once again, this might not be the bunch you want to be administering it, but it might be if you put the right
people in charge.
Yeah. So anyway.
Edward, what else you got on this big, bad, beautiful bill?
Well, I think there are two issues that need to be talked about, and I touched on one, is the effect that this is going to have on the states. I mean, a lot of the savings to the federal government is just cost shifting to the states. And the states are not only supposed to pick up more costs, but in many cases are limited under this bill on how they can raise money. I mean, you're putting more costs, for instance, on SNAP for food stamps for them, but limiting what they can charge Medicaid vendors, excuse me. So anyway, there seems to be a theme in here that inhibits the rights of states, and it's hard to believe a Republican wrote a bill that would have that kind of impact on state government and doesn't view states' rights in high regard. The other thing is that the nonpartisan tax office shows that the wealthiest people in the country are going to be about $12,000 to the better under this bill.
Yeah.
The poorest are going to be about $1,600 to the less.
Yeah.
Okay. And that gets me, and I think this is a subject for our next podcast, but the misconceptions, the conservative myths that cutting taxes is the best way to create jobs. Well,
Yeah.
that's not true. And that trickle down, which this is the mother of trickle down.
Although we haven't heard that in this.
No, because it's been so disproven. But whoever sold people on the fact that trickle down, meaning all the money ends up with poor people. I mean, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I put those with the people that sold everybody on bottled water. I mean, so that I think that and the idea that regulations are bad for business. I mean, when you think of bad regulations are bad for business, but our biggest competitor, China, which we're thinking are going to overtake us economically at any moment, has the most regulated economy in the world.
Yeah, no doubt.
So I think that's later on for us to discuss. But those were the things that were...
Well, I want to just jump back to a couple of good things that are happening with the bill. And one is our own Senator Cassidy. The Republicans and Cassidy are looking at creating a fund to protect rural hospitals from the negative consequences of their bill.
Mm-hmm.
And Cassidy said only a small proportion of Medicaid funds go to those institutions, but he argued that having a fund specifically for rural hospitals is a targeted way to help ensure their viability. So developing a fund for hospitals. Now, whether or not if they put that burden on the states, or if whether or not the federal is going to develop this fund. I don't know where that fund's going to come from. But at least there's a conversation about, and a realization that hospitals are going to be adversely affected by the bill.
Yeah.
Another thing is low-income housing. It seems that that there is some information in the bill to help low-income housing and some tax credits that go along with low-income housing. And I think that's something that we can explore in our next podcast as well. So there are a couple of good things in the bill, and we want to point out the good stuff as well as the bad stuff.
That reminds me of what Senator B.B. 60 Rabin, our old senator, used to say. When you said there's some good things in the bill, that even a blind hog found an acorn every now and then.
A clock is right twice a day. Anyway, keep those cards and letters coming. A Porch podcast at gmail.com. And if you want to be on the show, let us know.
And we're keeping you in our prayers.
And we will see you probably next week.
Yeah.
Okay. That beautiful music is Zach Villery. Check him out on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you get your music.